And while we're waiting for Bob Beckel to click onto the phone and join us to talk about more on the tax cuts, let's just ask Liz Trotter real quick.
What would his surgery entail?
Well, I think in Kylie's case, if I heard it correctly before I came on, it was she had both of her breasts removed. And it was a threat of breast cancer. And we've heard those stories before, where if it's like it's likely that you could have it. Would you go to? I mean, that's obviously an extreme. But would you have preventative surgery?
How much you want to roll the dice? I mean, there are those who might want to roll the dice on this one because that's a major operation,
right?
With all the attendant things that could go wrong.
Right.
I'm surprised at the 55%, but things are different when you're actually faced with a crisis like that. I think.
Yeah, David would.
Well, I hope if I were ever to have to face that challenge, there was a pill rather than a surgery that came to be that I might be able to just ingest in lieu of surgery. But as Liz says, that's a very that consideration with family that has to be involved in that decision making because you never know the risk of it. But it is good to hear that there are preventative measures rather than those that are for corrective surgeries.
Right.
To hear that there's something preventative or in advance, which I didn't know until today, is at least I gotta say is progress.
Right.
At least gives people options.
I'm very anxious to tune in to watch this segment today at 1:30. Yeah. Actually, a friend of mine back home in Sacramento, her father was diagnosed with, they thought that he was possibly going to have prostate cancer. So they ran a bunch of tests. He's okay for now, but they believe that things could take a turn for the worse. And he is going to have elective surgery in January. And they are going to remove a large area.
Yep.
And so they're doing it preventatively because of his health, and they think that it could take a bad turn.
Yeah, and it must be horrible to go to sleep at night.
To have to make the,
not knowing whether things are getting worse or, starting to spread. So I'm sure in that story, the consideration was I need to be able to go to bed at night with both eyes closed, rather than wondering, if I'm going to wake up in the morning.
Right.
So I can understand that.
Well, we're going to continue to monitor those poll results today, and we definitely want to have a chance to get in and talk to Bob Beckel because he's ready, and we love talking to Bob. So Bob Beckel joins us live on the phone. Beckel for breakfast on a Friday. Bob Beckel, I bet you have a lot to say about the tax cut proposal and what's happening in Washington, D.C., especially with Clinton and Obama. Take it away.
Well, I'm one of those liberals that can't stand this tax deal, but reluctantly, the reality is if the Republicans really do stick with not going along with anything else, they could always vote in the bill when they get the new Congress set. But and I like the idea of the unemployment extensions. I like the idea of the payroll tax cuts. But the idea that 300,000 millionaires and billionaires are going to get to keep their tax cuts and hold hostage 300 million Americans is just beyond me. But now, what's happening with Clinton? I think Clinton, when he went to the White House, he basically he's been here before. He went through this in '94, right after it's the midterm in his first term, and he got trashed, and the Congress went over to the Republicans, and I think he's probably sharing his experience, strength, and hope with Obama. Now, the question is whether Obama can do what Clinton did. So far, interestingly enough, it looks like he is. I mean, he's angered the base of his own party, who probably don't have any place else to go. I don't believe there's going to be a primary challenge to him. But I think Clinton's trying to give him a little bit of a roadmap of how you deal with the Republicans in power in the Congress.
I know Liz Trotter's joining us here on set, Bob, and I know that you guys have some lively debates from time to time, and also we have David Mercer, who's here, so I want to have them chime in on what you just said. David?
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Fine, David. How are you?
Good, thank you. Listen, in reference to what Bob said and about the Obama and Clinton visit, I do hope that perhaps former President Clinton can make his way over to Congress and huddle with the Democratic caucus to say, look, get back on the field. Let's see what we can do to work with the Republicans in the best of hopes, as Bob had mentioned, to maybe put off the bonus tax cut, as I call it, to the billionaires and millionaires. But I will point out that look, this is a temporary arrangement for the next 2 years, and is going to have to be separate and apart from the middle class tax cut, which I believe, and I'm sure those around the table and Bob believe, will get passed before the 31st. But this is going to, the bonus tax cut, if it is in the bill, is only going to be for 2 years. And it's going to have to be something that we all come to reckon with later on, especially as these deficits continue to expand. But really, if we didn't have to do it now, and the president has said it, that he would not do it now, but he is not going to let the middle class tax cut, be sacrificed at the altar of political warfare. So I do hope President Clinton does have a chance to go huddle with Democratic caucus and see about getting them back on the field to engage.
Liz.
Is there any time left?
Yes, we definitely want you to chime in on Bob's thoughts, and I know you've already responded to David's.
Yeah, so David, you'll forgive me if I
will.
Good morning, Bob. Well, I mean, I love to see how all these Democrats are trying to put a brave face and a creative face on what's a crumbling administration. And I think, I repeat that Clinton is coming in as Superman trying to fix this thing. And the Democratic Party is in complete disarray. And I'm so tired of hearing about billionaires and millionaires, whereas before, and I said, and I still say that, most of them down there are anyhow, we're arguing about this. But, billionaires and millionaires spend money and are probably the people that kept this economy afloat the last 2 years. Right. And that's the best stimulus that I can think of. Let capitalism work. Let these people who have money spend money. But no, we have to keep, sounding like Karl Marx and whipping them all the time.
All right. Well, we want to...
They didn't spend money and help this economy. They bought more stocks and bonds and offshore investments. I mean, the reality is that...
Good for the country.
Best money that comes out of this deal is going to be the payroll tax cut and unemployment, because those people spend the money right away. And you guys will never accept this, but the historians will record that the stimulus package is what saved us from a depression, not anything a bunch of rich people did. And the last comment is on your crumbling administration. When we look across and look at the candidates you've got for president,
that's what I say.
We have to be crumbling a lot worse than we are now, not to beat those fools.
All right, Bob, but I got to switch the subject really quick, because we want to keep you for just a few more minutes here, and we've got to ask you about our other top story on FoxNews.com. Gays in the military. Defense Secretary Robert Gates says that the military should not begin preparing troops for a possible repeal on the ban on gay service until Congress takes action. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't think it's going to get through. I think it should. I don't think it will. And I think what Gates is saying is that it is going to take a while to work the system through if it were passed. And right now, the Army and the military generally is strained to the maximum with 2 wars going on. And I think that what Gates is doing is sort of bowing to reality.
All right, Bob Beckel. Beckel on Fridays. We are so happy that you're here. Beckel for breakfast. Thank you so much for joining us on the phone today on this Friday.
Okay.
Hope it's warmer where you are.
No, it's not. I'll be heading to Florida next week.
All right,
okay.
Happy holidays.
All right, Bob Beckel, thanks so much for joining us. And now, as we say goodbye to Bob, we also want to say hello to, we have Scott Lazarin on the phone. Is that right? Oh, John Hewitt, I'm sorry. I've got my papers mixed up. John, are you with us? Hi, John.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Introduce yourself for people who don't know you.
I'm John Hewitt. I'm the CEO and founder of Liberty Tax Service, the fastest growing tax service in America.
All right. Well, I assume that you had your earpiece in and you heard the conversation as we had our back and forth here talking about the tax cuts. We want you to weigh in and we want to get your thoughts.
I did, and I think people need to understand that when they talk about taking money away from the rich, they're talking about a tax increase. And in my experience, and I've been in the tax industry for 41 years, in my experience, tax increases do not stimulate the economy. So the economy is stalled, it's barely moving, we're in danger of a double-dip recession. Taking money away from people and out of the people's pockets is going to hurt the economy.
Liz, or David, go ahead.
Okay, John, can I ask you, corporate profits are at an all-time high. For 10 years, there's been this tax cut. How, if that tax cut is so powerful, especially among, as we've been talking about, millionaires and billionaires, what are they spending it on? Because we don't see it being reflected in the economy. And while you said tax increases may not stimulate, I might agree with you there. But tell me where, in this case, the middle class aside, because we know that'll stimulate and keep people from going further into poverty, or to get them to hang on until we can reverse course here. But tell me what happened over the last couple of years where corporate profits are at an all-time high, and they've been and the wealthy have had this tax cut for 10 years, but yet it's not stimulating.
John, one of our, we encourage people to join in on the chat. It's an interactive program here on foxnews.com live, and somebody just wrote in and wanted me to ask you to talk about the offshore loophole in this.
Well, those are two different questions, and I think the key is that we need to get the economy moving. That if you look at what's happened in housing over the last 3.5 years, we've lost $9 trillion in value in housing. So that's really hurt the economy. People overspent in the mid part of the 21st century, and that has cost them now dearly. And everyone is trying to rebound from that and invest money into the economy. And even if the rich are buying stocks, that helps everyone that owns stocks. If they're buying bonds, that helps everyone that owns bonds. The rich have many employees. I mean, we do tax returns all over the country, and wherever there's a group of rich people, there are many more people that are servicing them, whether they're chauffeurs or they're child care or they're waiters or busboys. There's a lot of people that depend on spending. And so I'm not defending the long-term cuts for the rich. What I'm saying is that we're not talking about cutting taxes. We're talking 3 weeks from tomorrow, we're talking about raising taxes, and raising taxes has never stimulated the economy. If it wasn't a very perilous times, then we certainly could look at raising taxes. But today's times are still perilous, with housing values continuing to be pummeled.
John, others also are concerned about only giving a 2-year extension on these tax cuts, the 2-year mark.
You know, it's hard to look ahead and see where we're going to be in 2 years, and certainly I think 2 years we'll have a idea of how effective this has been. So I think it's a temporary measure. I don't think anything more than 2 years could pass. I think it's a good start.
All right, Liz, you have any closing thoughts? I know that we're going to have to move on to WikiLeaks soon, but I want to
closing thoughts on that. Well, I agree with almost everything our guest just said, and the rich do spend the money, and tax cuts, and it's so illogical why a party, the Democratic Party of the so-called oppressed traditionally, just also has built into their credo raising taxes, which can only hurt these people. It's just a contradiction that I've never been able to figure out.
All right. Well, John Hewitt, I know that we have to say goodbye to you. John Hewitt, CEO of Liberty Tax. I want to let you know you have a lot of fans here in the chat room. A lot of people we're anxious to hear your opinion and certainly appreciate your thoughts this morning. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Laura.
All right, so right now we're going to take a break, and we are going to move on to a different subject. We are going to talk about WikiLeaks. We have a live report coming up from Greg Palcott. He's in our London bureau, and something tells me that our panel is going to have some things to say about this. Don't go anywhere.